Let's jump into part 3. So, I told you in part 2 about how my father wasn't able to read. So, part 3 is going to be all about how I had to grow up fast. So, growing up fast. I do remember having difficult conversations with my dad when I was like 6, 7 years old. I remember the first time I ever heard the word divorce, I was like 6 and a half when he came inside my room one day. Because again, like my parents would argue a lot, and I would be woken up out of my sleep some nights because they'd be arguing all night. And we would have one TV, and it would probably be in the living room or their room. So, we didn't really have anything to kind of drown out no type of noise. So I heard all the conversations. So that's pretty much why I kind of had to grow up fast, because I had a lot of hard conversations with my father young. I'm over here remembering how I learned how to drive when I was 8, which I will tell you guys that in another video. But yeah, so I grew up again having these difficult conversations. I remember hearing about divorce. My dad would come into my room and he would say like, hey, you know what? Me and your mom aren't working out. And that's another thing, is my parents were not compatible at all. And that was why, my parents had so many arguments, disagreements. They never seen eye to eye. Like my father was very possessive, and my mom was like, had to be submissive. My mom is a Cancer, my dad is a Capricorn, okay? So different levels to this. And growing up, both of my parents never had that emotional support like they needed. My parents didn't even have their parents growing up. My mom, her dad died when she was like, I think 11 months old, and the only picture that she ever remembers of her father is him being dead in that casket. So that's the only vision that she can remember. And then my mom, her mom has like, I think it was like 8 to 9 kids. So my grandmother has like 8 to 9 kids. And yeah, my mom was kind of one of the younger ones at the time, but she wasn't able to have all the attention as well. So both of my parents didn't grow up with no emotional support. They had to also grow up very early in their lifestyles, and in Jamaican households, they do not play, okay? Like there was so much discipline, there was so much like, you would be getting the belt, you would be getting smacked up, you would make sure that you were so aligned before you came in front of my father. We'll just say that. Like you wasn't coming incorrect. You had to literally be perfect. And that's something I'll talk about later down the line, as like this is where my perfectionism comes from. Having to make sure that I did not mess up around my father, because he would literally blow a casket. Okay, so yeah, I had to walk on eggshells, but again, I had to have a lot of difficult conversations. I remember hearing all the time about my parents struggling with money, always worried about the bills, always arguing about the bills. And mind you, my dad did not let my mother work, so it was only him working. And he had the mentality already that like, hey, if you're black, you're gonna have to struggle, you're gonna have to work harder, you're gonna get treated like shit, you're gonna get shitty pay. And all of these things manifested because again, like those were his beliefs. That's all he knew, and that was what was imprinted upon his mind from what he grew up with. So again, like he didn't even have parents after the age of 5, so they kind of were out of his life doing their own thing as well. But again, like I said, I had to have those difficult conversations young, so I picked up on a lot of things. I knew about the things that were going on, and I was like, damn, I already like knew that we were not wealthy, we were not rich. That was already, visible as day. So I knew that we were different. I knew that we didn't have much, and I was expecting these things as well, because this is what my parents taught me. Like, hey, if you look a certain way, you're going to make a certain amount of money. You're not going to go far in life. And another reason why my dad didn't want my mom to work is because he also said there's really no point, because women are going to be getting paid less. And if you're a black woman, don't even bother. You're not even going to be getting much if you're coming in America. Okay? So yeah, he was like, that's just how you're going to get treated in America. That's just how you're going to be treated in America. So these were all of the things that I heard in my mind at a young age. And mind you, your subconscious mind is so sensitive, so open, so pure from the age of 0 to 7. Okay, and I was very open during those times. I was very aware of things, picking up on things at those times. So all of these beliefs and all of these things, all of these limitations, all of these thoughts were imprinted in my mind. Okay. So, yeah, I had difficult conversations. I heard about divorce young. I heard about cheating. My dad was also very paranoid. That's another thing that we'll talk about more in depth in another one of my videos. But also, I think the paranoia, because I was diving in and kind of channeling some information, but the paranoia that my dad had, which mind you, he still to this day has that same energy, that same paranoid like energy, like thinking people are after him and thinking people are watching him, thinking his phone is tapped, like those are the type of things that I witnessed and that I would hear my father say. And again, that I tuned in, and it came from him being, seen as an immigrant and thinking, I guess what he was imprinted to believe as a child is like, hey, you better act right. Everything you do is going to be watched. While you're over there, you have to be on your best behavior. You have to act a certain way. So mind you, that was imprinted upon him from being able to come over here. He had to hear those type of things, like you need to show up a certain way to be accepted, to be appreciated. And hey, by the way, they're also not going to treat you right. They're also going to give you shitty pay. You're going to get, you're going to get all this racism. You're going to be treated like shit as well. But you're going to make money, and you're going to have an opportunity to, have the American dream. So all of those energies were imprinted in my father at a young age, coming over to this country, no support, starting a fresh life. And that's another thing. My mom came to the United States, which we'll talk about in another video. My mom came to the U.S. when she was like 18. She moved to New York. Okay, so that's where a lot of her family was as well, was in New York. She got sent to New York because they couldn't take care of her in Jamaica. And also, I remember they were like, oh, she's too much of a pretty baby, that they didn't want to keep her in the environments that she was in. So they literally sent her to America to make sure that she would have a better life. That was the thing. But yeah, that's going to be part 3 of my childhood series. Be sure to give this video a like, comment, let me know if anything resonated or if you had a similar experience. Also, comment part 4 if you're ready for part 4.